So I'm out walking this morning because I started trying to walk every morning because it's good for the depression that often comes on me, and I want to stay ahead of it. And when I was out walking this morning, I got ambitious and decided to start to try to run. So I started running, but my legs weren't moving up with much lift, so I ended up running very low, and I was reminded and reminiscing about that I was Indian running. To understand Indian running, I guess I need to think that about Indian walking. So I've always had, back when I was in elementary school, I used to get those scholastic books, and they would have stories and facts about random things, and there was one that was about Indians, about how they would listen to the ground and would hear the buffalo coming, and that never really worked for me. Maybe there weren't enough buffalo around. But what did work was what they said about Indian walking. In Indian walking, it said that Indians walked with their feet, with their toes pointing straight ahead, and that this was the best way to walk, and that Indians had to walk along distances, and so this allowed them to do that. So I really had aspirations, I guess, Indian aspirations back then, even, because I started now concentrating on keeping my toes pointed straight and Indian walking all the time, and probably contributed to a certain lack of social skills, because of course I would always be walking along with my head down to make sure that my toes were pointed straight instead of looking at people or making eye contact. Thank you. So that choice, I don't know why I get in my head to do that, but I definitely went with it, and still, when I'm out walking, of course now I still am Indian walking. That reminds me of my Indian friend, who, and everybody needs an Indian friend, and my Indian poet friend, who makes the joke, because I'm Finnish, that how can you tell when a Finn really likes you? He looks at your shoes when he talks. That pretty much sums up my Finnishness. So I'm out. So that's Indian walking, but which I do. But the Indian running comes from actually someone else, and from friends that I had also in that same elementary school period. Their names were Walter and Wallace Poupores. They were twins. I remember when I first met them, I couldn't tell them apart. And I also, thinking back, they actually went always by everyone else would call them by their nicknames, their middle names, which was Jim and Al, but I never did. I always called them Walter and Wallace, which it seems like now I would definitely call somebody by whatever name they wanted to be called. But then, that was what they were for me. So Walter and Wallace were poor, and what we were, the story goes that we were out at near to a driving range, a golf driving range, in some woods that was right next to it, and we were out collecting range balls, because it was the summer, and if you collected range balls, you could then take them into the driving range and sell them for a little bit of money. So we were out in these woods just adjacent to the driving range collecting range balls. Woods and grass and weeds and everything grown up, Michigan summertime scene. And as we were doing this, I guess we got a little too close to the driving range itself, and to the fence or whatever that was there. And suddenly the owner of the place comes driving out in a little golf cart, sort of. Not the golf cart can't go that fast, but he was like charging right toward us, and was started yelling weren't really sure why is he yelling, what it was, but he clearly was upset. Thought, I guess, that we had actually went and we're now collecting range balls on the driving range itself, where there were a lot more balls and easier to find. But we were good, honest kids, so we would never have done that. But when we saw him charging at us and running toward us, we just were like, wow, wow. So of course we panic and just start running in all directions to get away from this. And I go running off through these weeds and so on. And eventually we meet up again farther into the woods. And one of the Poupores, I don't remember which one, but he said that he was really impressed because he saw me running away from this guy through the weeds, and that when he saw me running, I was going along, and my head was perfectly still as I was going through the weeds. It wasn't going up and down as I was running. It was just perfectly still. And he said that was the way that Indians ran. And so it's a special compliment when it can still hit you 40 years later. When somebody says something about you that really, I guess, touches you, and you keep it to you. So that's something about Indian running that stayed with me. We would collect these range balls. I was also reminded that the whole idea why, at least for me, I was collecting the range balls was to get some money, because right next to the driving range, or part of the driving range, was besides a miniature golf course that was called the Monster. That was a very cool golf course, miniature golf course to play on. I played many times with my family for fun. But there was also a game room, and a game room back then meant pinball machines. And for me, this was clearly my addiction of my teen years was pinball machines. And you can be addicted to almost anything, I guess. And it's just whatever it is that controls you rather than you control it. And so it controls your behavior, that whole first step. That my life is out of control. So for me, in my teen years, being just a Finn in Michigan, I guess, that was my addiction, and I would do anything, it seems, looking back, to try to get these quarters to play pinball, because the quarter was just so luscious. It represented the games. You'd get 2 games for a quarter back then, and then you could go and fulfill this need. And I remember stealing quarters out of my mother's purse, and sorry, Mom, and out of looking in drawers and just doing anything to get quarters so I could play pinball. I remember I would try to do something to get these quarters, and one time there was a pinball place, or not a pinball place, it was a department store that was right across from my elementary school. And I was a teen probably at the time. And there was a great pinball machine, and there was only a couple pinball machines in the front of the store, but there was a great one, and it was a bowling pinball machine. I remember that. So this was like, hey, dude, this is serious, dude. This is bowling. So bowling and pinball together. And I really wanted to play this machine more, but I ran out of quarters, or maybe I just couldn't get enough quarters to play this thing. So I came up with the bright idea. That maybe I would that I could make money and get enough money in quarters to play this thing more great entrepreneurial spirit, I decided, well, if I bought something like for 50 cents and went out and then sold it for $1, well, then I would have um, $1, and I could use 50 cents of that to buy another whatever, and take 50 cents and use that to pay $10. So it was a great scheme in my mind, it seemed, to solve this lack of quarter problem. And um, then what I decided to pick to sell, I had actually sold things with thinking back now. I had sold things door to door before. This was before now when the kids have to sell things door to door for school or whatever. My daughter would sell those after. They would give them the gift wrap and candy and all this stuff that all the kids are selling. It's such a pain. It seems like such a indoctrination into our capitalist system versus education that we're doing through the school. But anyway, so I had sold door to door. I went and sold like grit. That's an old time thing that would be in all the comic books. Sell grit to make money, and it was this little paper that had news or something in it, some little newspaper, and you would sell it door to door. I don't know. But anyway, you find kind ladies, I guess, with big fun little boys coming around selling it, and they would buy it. Or then I would sell, I thought the thing I sold was greeting cards too. I sold greeting cards. Not greeting cards, Christmas cards. So we'd have a book and we'd show samples. So I had the experience with this, and so I just had to pick something to sell, and I don't know, maybe your mind when you're addicted doesn't work as well. It doesn't think as clearly. Because the thing I picked to sell was cost like 50 cents, and it was a log. It was a nut log. So it was a log shaped, a little turd shaped thing that was nuts on the outside and candy sort of thing. It's like a fruitcake like object that nobody would really ever want. And so I bought one of those for 50 cents. So I must have taken my 50 cents and actually deferred my pleasure and said, no, I'm going to try to do something here. So I like that about myself, that I was able to sort of to do that, to say, oh, okay, I'm gonna actually put this away and try to expand on it. So that part of it I think is commendable. But the actual choice of objects was I went around in the neighborhood, this neighborhood right near there, and started going door to door and picking my one bar that I had with me, right? So that's all I had was this one bar. It wasn't like I had a box of bars and a name tag and a spatula or something that made it look like I was actually doing this legitimately something. Or so I'm sure anybody went to the door and they said, no, thank you. I went a couple of blocks and finally gave up. I don't think I even had I don't remember if I had the audacity to say that I was doing it for some charity or something, to try to get some sympathy for it. So I think it was more just the desperation of it all. The whole thing. So I think after a couple of blocks, it was just clear then that this was not going to work. And I said I would just go in my last 2 quarters and I left all this. And I guess maybe I don't know what happened to the nut log. I must have taken it home. Maybe I gave it to my mom. That's what I'd like to think. Try to make up for all those mistakes.